From in and around the Capital Region on the Alive Radio Network, this is The Matter at Hand. I'm Alicia Purdy.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee.
The 2022 legislative session is in full swing in New York State, and lawmakers in the Assembly are starting to move through the massive pile of bills that have been introduced by local representatives who are hoping to see them turned into New York State law. Currently, there are more than 8,000 bills that have been introduced for the 2022 session, many of which will never advance to the governor's desk or even to a vote once they get lost in committee, are heavily revised, withdrawn, or fizzle out for lack of support. The job of an elected representative is to represent the interests of their constituents, the people who voted them into office. However, is that what is really going on? Most New Yorkers only see the end result of a bill that has been passed and signed into law in the state, but the real story is the bills that are being introduced by the representatives who are elected to represent the will of the people. With over 8,000 bill introductions currently in the House, the language and intentions of the proposed legislation provides a glimpse into the future of the state at a time when crime is hitting record peaks. People are moving out of the state in record numbers, and social issues like critical race theory, late-term abortion, and equity agendas threaten to dismantle the foundation of the once great Empire State.
When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law.
An idea for a bill may come from several sources: the legislators and their staff, the governor and their staff or departments, individuals, associations, and interest groups. The intent is to create more understanding, solve a problem, or provide new instruction to help accommodate people across the state. But the state of New York has seen an increasingly sharp divide between two vastly different worlds: the more rural parts of the state where conservative New Yorkers tend to settle down, and the heavily urban cities with high concentrations of liberal-leaning residents who have the power and numbers to drastically sway the outcome of representative elections in the state, even though statistically their values do not reflect those of the average New Yorker.
No more shots! No more shots! No more shots! No more shots!
We don't want no shots. We don't want no shots. We don't want no cards.
No tyranny. Otherwise, take the Statue of Liberty back to France.
Cities like New York City, Buffalo, Rochester, and Albany carry most statewide elections, and on the local level, electoral outcomes tend to fall along the lines of the largest demographic in any given city. Older populations tend to vote more conservatively, while areas with younger populations tend to vote along Democrat, liberal, or even socialist lines. However, as Republican and conservative Democrat New Yorkers abandon the state, large groups of immigrants and leftist transplants take their place and vote in their representatives whose bill introductions reflect radical values that are no longer recognizable to lifelong New Yorkers, like the state's disastrous bail reform law and the dismantling of the voting and ID laws that were in place to protect election integrity, in favor of overreaching tone-deaf laws that reflect the hardline liberal values like climate change, the SAFE Act, late-term abortion, and gun control laws that are such an overt violation of the Second Amendment that they're being fought all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will, but today I am still just a bill.
The actual drafting of legislation is usually done by staff of the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission, but plenty of special interest groups have their attorneys draft a bill and submit their ideas for legislation in bill form via state agencies. So just what is the New York State Assembly up to during the 2022 legislative session? Most New Yorkers simply don't know. Currently, the 150 Assembly members in the New York State House Assembly have a heavily Democrat majority, leaving elected officials free to govern the state almost without restraint and pad bill introductions with a wide range of agendas, regardless of whether or not they reflect the will of the people that elected them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to explain my vote. Just over a year and a half ago, there was a lot of controversy about birth control. I remember the battles, I remember the coat hanger stories, and I remember just how difficult this was. When I saw that we were back to defending birth control, I realized that this battle is going to be a long one, it's going to be a protracted one. New York has been such a leader in this movement and the movement on, we founded the women's movement. And I want to see New York be a leader on a number of issues because I think that is what has distinguished New York for so many decades, if not centuries.
Pat Fahey is a Democrat representing New York's 109th Assembly District, which covers a large portion of the Albany and Guilderland areas, parts of Bethlehem and New Scotland. In addition to her open support of abortion, Fahey, a practicing Catholic, continues to introduce and vote on legislation distinctly separate from a faith foundation or even a reflection of the values of her constituents. Yet her consistent re-election proves that liberal-leaning voters are more inclined to speak with their vote than the silent majority of conservatives.
While we've talked a lot today about assault weapons, one of my primary concerns is handguns and the proliferation of handguns. Lots of folks today have talked about how this will not solve this problem or not solve that. It is not perfect. It will not solve every problem. I have seen the efforts toward comprehensive gun control be beat back for decades now. I will prevent future folks from being held up.
For the 2022 legislative session, Pat Fahey has introduced A03192, a bill that would permit any child who's at least 14 years of age to take certain immunizations and medications without parental knowledge or consent. Assemblyman Phil Steck is a Democrat representing New York's 110th Assembly District, which comprises the eastern tip of Schenectady and the northeastern tip of Albany County. He is currently the co-sponsor of a bill that authorizes the Commissioner of Health to require schools to have a COVID immunization program in order to receive state aid, and would require injected COVID-19 medications for attendance at school. Other bill introductions in the House in 2022 include A010122, mandating culturally responsive lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender education curriculum and standards for all public and private schools, including elementary schools, that must cover the role of oppression and inequity in the treatment of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered individuals, and instruction in the history of this demographic in New York State and in the United States. There's also A07991 that would suspend all unnecessary travel to states that have laws preserving Judeo-Christian perspectives pertaining to sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And while late-term abortion continues to run unchallenged, A03196 would protect turtles crossing the road. While New Yorkers are paying the highest taxes in the nation, A03730, if passed, would make graffiti a hate crime. While pedophiles, murderers, and rapists roam the street without consequence under New York's disastrous bail reform laws, A02347 would make it illegal to leave a dog outside without a bowl of water. And while there are no term limits for ending the career of a bad politician, A01415 would designate adopted rescue cats as the official state cat representative. While education outcomes in New York continue to fail students and cause parents to yank their kids from government schools, A03322, if passed, would ensure that students on all SUNY campuses are given unrestricted access to abortion on campus. And while churches in New York struggled under disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo's continuing executive orders during COVID lockdowns, A01926, if passed, would set up a nonprofit status for abortion fund donations that would allow individuals to designate a gift to the fund on their personal income tax returns. And while the statue of President Theodore Roosevelt is being removed from the front of the American Museum of Natural History in Manhattan, Bill A08488 would, if passed, ensure no criminal is ever given a prison sentence of life without parole ever again, no matter how violent their crimes.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Oh, but it looks like I'm going to live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill.
However, in spite of the legislative excesses of the current makeup of New York's Assembly, there are elected representatives who continue to fight, push back, speak out, and take a strong stand against the status quo. And they are introducing legislation, too, like A04429, the Born Alive Survivors Protection, to provide medical intervention that would save the lives of children who survive an abortion, and A03780, that would require parental notice before a minor can abort their unborn baby, and A03752, that would require medical facilities to provide alternative birth options for mothers contemplating abortion.
You know, if there was a professional can-kicking team in New York State, some in this chamber would make the all-star team. You know, I'm just disappointed. I thought with the change of leadership in the executive mansion that we would have a new New York. But unfortunately, it seems to me like the new New York isn't any different than the old New York.
Assemblyman Chris Tague is a Republican representing New York's 102nd District. Known as America's Assemblyman, Tague's territory covers Greene and Schoharie counties, along with parts of Delaware, Columbia, Albany, Otsego, and Ulster counties.
We're just as bad today as we were 6 months ago. This is the place where good ideas and good things come to die. It's a shame. Every one of us should be ashamed of ourselves that we've let it gotten this far. Do our jobs, and let's do right for the people of New York.
Tague and others like him continue to introduce legislation designed to restore the state of New York, starting with its governing bodies. One of the bills America's Assemblymen introduced in the 2021-2022 legislative session is A08101, that if passed would prohibit state agencies from asserting any rules, regulations, or any form of guidance forcing kids under 18 years old to wear a mask in public or at any sporting events if they're not showing symptoms of COVID-19. Tague is a co-sponsor of A08372 that would prohibit daycare centers from requiring kids under 5 to wear masks. And he's co-sponsoring A08487 that would allow parents to decide if their kids should wear masks in school.
First of all, I want to thank Assemblyman Tague for getting this group together and sponsoring legislation that's going to stop this insanity.
Assemblyman John Sulka represents the 121st Assembly District, which covers Madison County and parts of Otsego and Oneida counties.
Now, as a former respiratory therapist, I understand the implications of wearing a mask for extended periods of time. The damage that we're doing to our children is going to take a long time to repair. We need to tell this governor here, we need to stop this insanity and unmask our children now.
Sulka is a co-sponsor to many of the same bills sponsored by Tague, and in the 2022 legislative session, Sulka introduced A04269, which would prohibit a mandatory immunization against the coronavirus. While Assemblyman Tague and Sulka assert legislation that reflects the people they represent, they're not alone, as others in the House fight for traditional New York values. A05277 would exempt private and parochial schools and daycare centers from immunization requirements. A07042 would establish a claim for strict liability against the state for any injury caused by the administration of an immunization mandated by the state. A02526 would provide a homeschool tax credit for parents purchasing curriculum to educate children privately at home, and A01629 would require local school districts to grant homeschool seniors a diploma. With over 8,000 bills currently before the Assembly in various forms, how many make it to the governor's desk remains to be seen. Without term limits for Assembly members who continue to violate the will of the people they represent, elections are the only recourse to replace a failed incumbent with a better representative. But are the conservative, silent majority ready to get loud, get involved, volunteer to help candidates, run for office, and speak out, to stand out and push back against the status quo? With current leftist Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul promising to run for official election in 2022, what will New York State look like as the year draws to a close? As always, and more than ever before, the fate of the state is in the hands of the people.
It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
He signed your bill, now you're a law.
Oh, yes.
examining the issues that pertain to the people of God. This is the matter at hand. From in and around the Capital Region, on the Alive Radio Network, I'm Alicia Purdy.